We are at one o'clock, and I think we'll just get going. And if there are any people who are coming in, that's fine. My name is Beth Shapiro, and I am a bookseller at Skylark Bookshop. And for those of you who don't know or missed Alex's spiel, we are right downtown on 9th Street in Columbia. So we have a lot of students and a lot of teachers here today. This is a wonderful event that you're all going to be part of. We have plenty of Columbia Public School students and teachers. We have some Slater students, so we are all excited and happy to have you with us today. And so I would like to tell you a little bit about our special guest today. This is Andrea Beaty. She is the New York Times best-selling author of many beloved children's books, including the best-selling Questionnaire series. And a lot of you, I'm sure, are familiar with these. We've got, Ada Twist, Scientist, and Rosie Revere, Engineer. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with these books. She's also written Attack of the Fluffy Bunnies, Happy Birthday, Madame Chapeau, and One Girl. She lives just outside of Chicago. And I know she has plenty of different things to talk about, but she just had a new book come out just a few days ago, and it's called I Love You Like Yellow. So that is pretty cool. That's what she's got there. So we're going to listen to Andrea for a while, maybe a half hour or so, and then we're going to open this up to questions. And I'm going to be reading the questions, and we'll get some neat responses from Andrea. So welcome, Andrea. We are so happy to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted. I don't know for the people who came in early and heard us, we were chatting. I used to live in St. Louis. And so a lot of times, most weekends, we would head in the car and head down towards your neck of the woods and go kayaking or canoeing or just go hang out in the beautiful, beautiful area. It's really a wonderful, wonderful place. So I want to tell you a little bit about me. I am the author of the Questionnaire series, and we have lots of books now. And I want to show you the most recent questionnaires is Aaron Slater, Illustrator. And this just came out a few months ago, and it's a story of Aaron, who is an artist, and he loves to tell stories. Oh, he loves stories so much. And he loves to draw. He's an artist, but he loves to write. He wants to write stories as well, but Aaron is dyslexic. Dyslexia is a condition where your brain has a hard time connecting the sounds of words and the shapes, making that connection. So reading is really a struggle. So it's a story about how Aaron tries he needs to tell a story in class or write a story, and he struggles with it, but how he finds his way to tell what's in his heart through his art. And it's a really fun book. It's beautiful. It's also illustrated by David Roberts. The other thing I want to show you before we go into I Love You Like Yellow is the next chapter book that's coming out. So for every character from the questionnaires, there are chapter books. And then there are also project books, which are really fun. Those are things that you can work on, like, on weekends in the summer, or just anytime you want to do some science or architecture or engineering. But the next chapter book is called Ada Twist and the Disappearing Dogs. And it's really fun. There's a mystery because all the dogs and cats in Blue River Creek seem to be disappearing. So that's scary. What's going on? I don't know. It's a mystery. You'll have to read it to find out. One of the fun things about the chapter books, by the way, is that at the end of each chapter book, I also include some poems and some nonfiction parts. And nonfictions are things that are true, factual information, because I love to read nonfiction things, and I know lots and lots of kids do too. Sometimes I write poems, and this is the poem. They're very short. In this book, there's a dinosaur tooth that plays a very key role in the story. And I wrote a poem about an allosaurus, sorry, which is the kind of dinosaur. And I'm just going to read it because you know what? It's a Tuesday, and I feel like Tuesday is the very best day for poems. So this is a poem I wrote called The Allosaurus. The Allosaurus was a beast that lived so long ago, with saw-like teeth inside its head and claws upon its toes. There was nothing it loved more than chomping on an herbivore. Alas, like every dinosaur, the allosaur is no more. Wouldn't it be neat if there were still allosaurs running around, allosauruses, allosauris? I don't know. Okay, so that book's coming out in May, and I think you might really get a kick out of it. But today, I'm going to talk about this beautiful, beautiful book. This is a book called I Love You Like Yellow, and I will tell you why I wrote it. When my children were young, and I have two kids, but they're like 30 years old now. They're all big grown-up people. But when they were young, we went on vacations everywhere. And we'd go camping. We pretty much went everywhere in the country. And we would go see all of these big, important places like Mount Rushmore, where these giant, fantastic sculptures in the mountain. Or we go to New York City or Washington, D.C. and see the Lincoln Memorial or whatever. But it's funny now because when I ask my kids what they remember about those trips, what they'll say is, oh, Mount Rushmore had the best ice cream. And do you remember the cookies we got in the Smoky Mountains? Those were the best cookies. And do you remember that guy who had that purple kite when we were in Maryland at the coast? So they always remember things, not necessarily the big thing that they're supposed to remember. Of course they remember those, but the things that really impress them and the memories that they have of those places are connected with colors or sounds or smells or tastes. And it made me think about memory, because that is how we store memories. We store memories based on our sensations, on the sights and sounds and all of our senses. And it made me think about some of the things that I remember as a kid and how each person that you're connected to, each person that you love, you have very specific connections to them. And say you have a whole group of friends, there are some memories that you have just with one friend or one other friend. And that maybe is based on something you did or ate or saw. And the same is true for me. So when I think about things that from my youth, there are certain sounds and sights that remind me of specific people. So this, for instance, this is a very old-fashioned sound. Some of you guys have probably never even seen one of these. This is an old telephone. This was my grandma's telephone. Hello, is grandma there? No, she's not. What? Okay, bye. She's not there. I used to get on this phone when I visited my grandma, and I would call my mom. And so when I see that phone and when I hear that sound, it reminds me of my grandma, but it reminds me of my mom as well and my dad. So sometimes he'd answer. So when I hear that, I don't know how you describe that sound. Anyway, that's that. This pillow, my grandma made 70 years ago, and it's fuzzy and it's a little scratchy. And on a hot day, because we lived in Southern Illinois, so it's pretty close to the same temperature and weather as Columbia. You know how hot it can get in the summer, and my grandma did not have air conditioning, but I would go to her house, and no matter how hot it was, I'd put my face on this pillow, and of course I'd get all sweaty and scratchy, but it was the coziest thing in the world. So when I feel this kind of fuzzy, cozy, then it makes me think about grandma. So I wanted to explore the idea of textures and sounds and how those things have a connection to people we love. And so I wrote this book called I Love You Like Yellow. And it's really beautiful. And it's been illustrated by an artist named Vashti Harrison. And Vashti is marvelous. She is the writer and illustrator of the books called The Little Leaders, Little Legends, marvelous, marvelous books. I hope you check them out. I'm sure that you've got them there in store at Skylark. Also, it's published by Abrams Books for Young Readers. And Abrams does this beautiful thing. whenever you have the book, they have always a secret underneath. So here, it's the mom or the aunt, the adult and the kid, and they're rainbows. So it's always a little bit of a secret. And whenever you look at any of our books, like any of the questionnaires books, check underneath the paper because there's a whole different scene there. Okay, I'm going to read this book to you, and then we'll talk about some other things. So I'm going to share my screen, and here we go. I can see if you guys can see that. All right, this is I Love You Like Yellow, written by me and illustrated by Vashti Harrison. These are the end papers, and I love them because they're just little tiny images that Vashti put in here to sort of show some of the small things that are inside the book. So if you take a look when you're reading the book, you can find all these little elements. I love you like yellow. I love you like yellow. I love you like green, like flowery orchid and sweet tangerine. I love you like silly. I love you like mad, like joyous and jolly, like silent and sad, like crunchy and crispy, like sweet and like tart. I love you like crazy with all of my heart. I love you like slowly. I love you like fast. I love you like first, and I love you like last. Like brisk and like breezy, like bouncy and bold. I love you like new, and I love you like old. I love you like stormy, like starry, like still. I've loved you forever, forever I will. Like sunny, like shady, like gloomy, like gray. From the breaking of dawn till the end of the day. I love you, my dear one, like that and like this. Drifting to sleep with a hug and a kiss. And that's the end. Here you go. Okay, can you all see me again? Miss Beth, am I up on the screen? I can't tell because I only see the word that says Beth Shapiro.
Yes, you are good, Andrea.
Okay, so that's the story, and it's a very simple story. It's really a poem. So what happens when you write a picture book is I wrote this poem, and I wrote it, and I kind of set it aside and got busy with other things, and mostly the questionnaires, and kind of forgot about it. And years passed, and one day I was in, I think, Washington, D.C. or New York, and I was at a conference, and Vashti Harrison came by and introduced herself because her books were new, and she was at the conference doing some events for those. And I was so pleased to meet her, and we became friends on Twitter. And so I love to see every day she would post these beautiful little illustrations that she made. And one day she posted this beautiful little illustration of a girl with an umbrella. And I looked at it and it reminded me, oh, I have that poem about yellow. And it seemed to me just such a nice fit. And so Vashti created, so I asked, would you be interested? And asked the publisher, do you think we could see if Vashti would be interested? And I reached out to her as well, and she was. And so Vashti created the art for this book in a way without any words. Like I didn't say, oh, here, make the yellow part about a girl with an umbrella, or make it about an aunt or a mom sharing a rainy day with the kid in their life. I just the words from the book went to Vashti, and then she came up with the whole story. I'm going to share my screen again, by the way. And we're going to look back through this a little bit. And I'm going to show you. And so looking at some of the ways that she took these simple words and made little stories with them. But one of the cool things that she did, she could have done just one family that went through the whole book, but she wanted to show how we have many different kinds of families, but also we also have very different connections with the people in our families. So each of the pictures is either two people, or at most three people, like if there's a couple of kids, but it's never a lot of people because it's about that very small connection. So I'm just going to go through a little bit and show you some of my favorite things. Okay, I love the way the kids they're making orange sliced mouths, because I can't eat an orange without doing that. But I didn't tell that to Vashti. She just probably does that too, like everyone does. So I love this scene. The I love you like silly and mad and joyous and silent and sad, because I don't know about you guys, but some of people, if you have siblings, I have 5 of them. We're a family of 6 kids. And I can tell you that at any moment we were silly, but then we'd be mad, or we'd be like happy, and then we'd be sad, but it's all kind of jumbled. And the memories we have, though, come out to be the memories of a day and the fun that we had. I always like something that's crunchy and crispy, and I love something that's sweet and tart. Those flavors come out. One of the things, I love doing cooking, so this is one of my favorite pictures. One of the things that is fun that I hope you guys will do is to think about the people that you love, and think about, for each of them, what is a special thing that you love to do with them, or a special color, or a flavor, or a scent, or something that reminds you of them. And maybe you can draw a picture about it or write a poem about it that's just special for them. I love this scene, but I love this one, like brisk and like breezy, like bouncy and bold. Here's a whole new relationship. The mama with the baby who's not born yet, and then after the baby is born. Something else that's fun to do, and this is be a good classroom event, I think, or do it on your own on the weekend, is to think about, go through the text of this book, just the poem, I love you like yellow. What would you write? What would you draw? How would you show a picture of something that's yellow that has a connection with you and somebody else? Or starry or still. And I love this illustration about I love you forever. Forever I will. That's Vashti wanted to find a way to show something that was far away and forever and ever and ever. And so she thought about the stars. And this is a constellation called Ursa Major, I think, which is the big bear. And of course, it's the big bear with the cub. So in this case here, she made a story. So like sunny and shady, she put a whole scene, a series of pictures together about what happened here. So they go out because it's sunny, they're going to go to the beach. Now it's shady because they have an umbrella. Uh-oh, now it's gloomy. Well, that takes all the fun out of it. It's gray. It's a drag. Who wants to be at the beach when it's gray? And so they fix it. They find their own way by drawing a sun on the thing. And now it's sunshine again, even if it is gray. Okay, I am going to stop the sharing again. Oh, so that's kind of the things I wanted to tell you about I Love You Like Yellow. Vashti did the art by drawing on her pads, like drawing the outlines and things. And then she hand drew the art and scanned it in and added color to it. So she uses a very interesting process. I think maybe we should do some questions and answers. What do you guys think? Because I suspect all the things that I would tell you, you have already, you know specifically which ones you want to ask. And we'll come up with good information.
I'm happy to read out some of these questions. We've gotten some ahead of time, and then we have some in our Q&A too. So I'm just gonna I'll start asking you a few. And the first question I'm going to ask is from Olivia, who is in Mrs. Rinaldi's class at New Haven Elementary. And Olivia asks, what is the process of being an author like? What is your daily schedule?
Oh, well, that's a very good question. I don't always have a set schedule. Um, so my days vary a bit. Like, for instance, right now, my days include a lot of Zoom calls and a lot of talking with people about book and reaching out to get people to know about it, because you can write a book and if nobody knows about it, then I can enjoy it, but you won't get to enjoy it. So there's a lot of that. But when I'm writing a book, I tend to get up at about 9 o'clock, and I get my coffee. And if it's at all warm outside, I sit outside in my garden because I love to sit by my flowers. And I just sit and I sort of think and I roll around in my head what I'm working on and try to figure out what to do with it. And sometimes I can spend a whole day and I look like this when I'm writing. Oh, no, that's not quite right. I look more like this when I'm writing. There's a lot of coffee involved when you're a writer, at least in my case. So I'm thinking about things, but then I'll come in and I'll sit and I'll probably work for 2 or 3 hours and type up or handwrite my ideas and then work on them. Usually 3 or 4 hours of very intense writing is kind of like all my brain can take. And then I have to get up and go do something else just to clear the cobwebs out. But it's fun. I find it very satisfying. And I find it's kind of exciting, especially when you get a new idea. Then it's like, wow, you know how excited it is when you get the idea to do something that you've not thought about before or go a place you've never been before. It's kind of that feeling. It's really enjoyable. I love it. Good
All
question.
right. Let me see here. Let me grab another one of these. Here is a question from Miss Tracy's class from Cedar Ridge Elementary. And the question is, why did you choose to write for children instead of for adults?
Oh, that's a very good question. Well, the truth is, I just sort of write things that I like and the things that interest me and that amuse me and that occur to me. And it just kind of happens that those are things the kids are interested in as well. So I may someday write a novel that's for adults, but I don't know. Kids are more interesting. I think kids are amazing, and you guys are always open to new ideas, and you're smart and you figure stuff out. So I think it's like a great honor to write for kids. And also, I love being kind of silly. I'm a very silly person. I said very seriously, I'm very silly. Actually, I am. I'm very silly. And I love that I can write a book that has some silliness in it, and kids will enjoy that, can appreciate it. Adults kind of forget how to be fun. They forget how to be a little goofy, and I think that's sad. I think adults should be goofier.
All right. And the
I could run for
questions are,
president. I could run for president, and that could be my campaign. Be goofier. Be goofier. That would work.
the questions are swarming us here. Here is Jaycon from New Haven Elementary in Mrs. Rinaldi's class also. And the question is, what inspired you to write your book series? So I think Jaycon's thinking of the questionnaires.
The questionnaires, that's the series that most people know the best. Well, what inspired me was when my son was very young, he used to build things all the time. So if I was cooking dinner, he would go get the soup cans out of the pantry and make a tower out of them, or take the pots and pans out of the shelf and make a city out of them. And I thought that was really fun. And I loved that he was very, very passionate about architecture and about building things. And of course, Legos. He loved Legos, and I still love Legos. We have a million of them. They hurt when you step on them in your bare feet, though. I will tell you that. I know that from experience. But they're so wonderful and creative. So I got the idea to write a book about a kid who was passionate about architecture. And that was Iggy Peck. And I thought Iggy Peck was just a one-time book that would just be its own thing, and that would be it. But what happened was that people really liked Iggy, and it was mostly the independent bookstores and educators and librarians sort of fell in love with Iggy, and they kept telling people about it, more and more and more people, and it became a bigger and bigger thing until it, like, the publisher said, well, why don't you write another book about Iggy Peck? And I thought and I thought and I thought, and I just couldn't come up with another story for him that was different enough to be worth doing. I didn't want to write the same book twice. And then about the same time, I came up with the idea, and my editor, we both thought, well, what about those other kids in the classroom? Because David Roberts, remember how I said with Vashti Harrison with I Love You Like Yellow, I wrote the poem, and then it went to her, and she looked at it and came up with the whole world and all of the illustrations without me making any comments about how they should be. And the same was true for Iggy Peck. So from the words of Iggy Peck, David Roberts, who lives in England, came up with this beautiful land, this wonderful town, and these kids who are so interesting and so cool. But to him, they all have personalities. So he always like looks at everybody who's in his books and thinks of them as a real person. And that means that every time you see them, he's thinking about who they are. But he didn't tell me who they are. I got to looking at them, and I looked at the clues that he put inside his illustrations. And that's where I came up with ideas of who these other kids were. So if you look at Iggy Peck Architect, the kids all show up 4 times. And I noticed after a long time looking at them every day that there was one girl that you never saw both of her eyes. Her hair swooped. Where are you? Where are you, Rosie? Ah, here we go. Her hair swooped over one eye. And I thought, why? What's going on? What's your story? And so I started thinking about her and what her story might be. And that's Rosie Revere. And so for each book, I go back. Then I wrote Rosie, and then David made more illustrations. And now I had 2 books to look at to figure out who the kids were. And so every time there's a new book, we go through, and now there's more pictures and more clues about who the kids are. And I ask who they are, and sometimes they tell me, and sometimes they don't. So that's kind of the process. And it's a very unique process. I don't think there's anyone else who does, that I've heard of, who has that same sort of situation. Maybe there are, but mostly when you write a book, it goes to the illustrator, and I don't have contact with them or questions, or we don't talk. And David and I don't. We do now a little bit after 15 years, basically, but for the most time we haven't. And I never ask him things too much, and he doesn't tell me things too much, because we don't want to get in each other's way, because he's so talented, and I want to be surprised by the art. I want to see what he's got in his mind, and it's always a delight. It's a great treat. So that's a long question, well, a long answer to a very short question. But that's how it happened.
Well, and someone has a related question. Will you keep writing more books in that series?
Well, I will keep writing the books in that series as long as they're fun, as I can find and explore something true, and as long as the characters keep telling me their stories. So I don't know. I can't imagine that I will write one for everybody, because I just turned 60, and I think I'd have to be about 200 to finish them all, but I could. If I eat more vegetables and fruit and work out, I'll try. How about that? I'll try.
I've got the same type of question from 2 students, Parker and Kennedy, and they are wondering what your favorite book has been to write.
That's a tough question. It's a different experience when I'm writing a chapter book or a picture book. And I think if I had to pick one, I think the most fun to write has been Attack of the Fluffy Bunnies, which is a chapter book, and there's actually 2 of them. There's Attack of the Fluffy Bunnies, and then Fluffy Bunnies 2, The Schnoz of Doom. And there's about killer alien rabbits that come from space and end up at a summer camp where they discover that children who eat too many marshmallows are super delicious. They're super delicious. And it's a very silly book. So that was maybe the most fun. I laughed the most when I wrote that one. But I think maybe the most satisfying one that I've written is Aaron Slater, Illustrator, because I love the poetry of it and the story of it. So I don't know. That's a tough one. That's tough. Ah, I never have good answers for that question.
We have Elizabeth asking, when did you start writing? And Isaiah, in a similar vein, is asking, what was your inspiration to start writing?
Oh, hi guys. When did I start writing? Well, when I was a kid, I used to write. I didn't ever imagine I would be a writer though, because when I was your age, I wanted to be um, an astronaut, a farmer, a race car driver, a detective, spy, deep sea diver, a translator at the United Nations. I wanted to be about any possible career you can imagine. I thought of them all and imagined myself at them. And you know what? I kind of still do that. I ended up studying biology and computer science and worked in St. Louis for a number of years. And then when we had kids, my husband got a job in Chicago, so we moved way north. And I didn't go back to work in the computer industry anymore. And I was home with my kids. And that's when I started reading a ton of picture books. And I loved them so much because the picture books that you guys have now are a million times better. I mean, a trillion times, a gazabajillion times better than the ones that I had when I was a kid. So when my kids were young, even, they were so good. And I discovered this new art form that I really didn't appreciate before that. And that's when I started getting ideas and thinking about stories and writing things just for myself and writing things because they made me happy or made me laugh or helped me express myself. And that's an important thing I want to tell all of you guys is that you should write because, or draw or dance or sing or find some way to express yourself through art because it helps you explore ideas. And there's no wrong answer. There's no wrong way to do it. And you don't even do it for other people. It's just for you. It can help you understand yourself and the world better. And that's how I got to starting with writing. And also reading is a really important part of that because you can help understand yourself and the world better. Every time you read a book, you learn something about yourself and about the world around you. So again, another long answer to, yeah, that's how it happened.
Thanks, Andrea. Are you game for more questions? Should we keep going?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I love it.
Wyatt asks, how long does it take you to write a book? And then kind of in the same vein, we have Ms. Holman's class at Fairview, and they are asking, can you write a book in one day?
What a perfect connection between those two stories. Can I? Yes. Have I? Yes. I don't think I can get it up there. So it's behind me. Okay. This is a complicated answer. So everyone, let's get real cozy. So the answer to how long does it take to write a book is, I don't know. Sometimes it is really fast. So one time I wrote a book called Dr. Ted, and it's back here on the shelf behind me, but I can't get it off. And what happened there was my editor sent me a picture of a little bear and said, this bear doesn't have a story. Do you think you could write a story for him? And I said, I don't know. I'll find out. And I did. And I wrote that book in 1 hour and it was done and it was fabulous. That was it. Cool. So that was very fast. But then sometimes it's not fast. One time I wrote a story called Hide and Sheep. And I wrote that story and I thought it was perfect. And I sent it to my editor. And my editor said, oh, it's great, but I think it could be better. So she sent it back. And I went, what? What do you mean it's not perfect? I wrote it. It's perfect. It's got to be. And she's like, no, it can be better. Okay. So I thought about what she said, and she was so right. It could be better. So I rewrote it. I sent it back to her. And she said, better, but it could be better still. And so I rewrote it and I sent it to her. And she sent it to me, and I sent it to her, and she sent it to me, and I sent it to her, and oh. And that went on for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 10 years. 10 years I worked on that book until finally it was done. Finally, I had changed it enough and really discovered what the story was about, and it was done. And that was called Hide and Sheep. And I'm so glad that I stuck with it, because I don't know, do you think I ever wanted to quit during that time? Yeah, every single time that the editor sent it back, I was like, I can't do this. This is too hard. I don't know what to do. And I got really frustrated. But then I remembered that when you try to do something, sometimes it's hard, and you can either give up or you can just try again. And sometimes you put it away for a while, and when you come back, you go do something else, and then you come back and you can think about it in new ways. And I'm glad I stuck with it, because I learned that lesson that, yeah, it's not easy to do stuff you want to do, but it's rewarding, and just the process is really good. So the answer to the question, how long does it take, is I don't know. It could be a little and it can be a lot. And that's true for every project, I think. But it's always fun, even when it's not.
That persistence is a great lesson for all of us, for sure. Kenya asks, what is your favorite book ever?
Oh, wow. Kenya, that's a tough question, because that's kind of like asking, what's my favorite dessert? Sometimes I'm in the mood for cake, but sometimes I'm in the mood for cookies. Sometimes pudding is the only thing that will do. So my mood really depends on what I'm gonna love. But some of my favorites, I love the original Winnie the Pooh book called House at Pooh Corner. It's much different than the Disney versions of things. It's really a beautifully written book. I love Charlotte's Web. I love the picture book Go Dog Go. I still have my copy from when I was a kid, and I still love to read it. I love Dr. Seuss, and I love rhyming books a lot. So I have a bunch of favorites. I love mysteries. When I was in maybe 3rd or 4th grade, I started reading a lot of mysteries. The thing that is amazing to me is that how the kids now have so many brilliant books, and that whatever interests you about anything, there's a book for it. It's astonishing. So go to Skylark, go to the library, ask your teachers and people you know, and you will find, if you need a book that just, you have something you want to figure out, or you just want a certain kind of book, keep looking, because you'll find your favorite book out there too.
All right, we have classes at Slater who are wondering how you came up with the questionnaire characters.
Well, it was looking at the pictures from David Roberts's illustrations and trying to look at the clues that he puts into each of those characters, and then making up stories about them. So that's kind of a fun thing that you guys can do as well. You can look at all of the kids who are in the class of the questionnaires and see who you think they might be. What clues can you find? Or you can do that from pictures in magazines, or anywhere. You can see a picture of somebody and think, what's their story? That's a favorite thing I like to do when I'm people watching. Like maybe I'm out somewhere and I'm waiting for a bus, or I have some time to kill and I'm hanging out and I don't have anything to do. I like to look at people and think, what's their story? And that's basically what being a writer is, looking at people and going, oh, sometimes you're just completely making them up. So yeah, kind of from there. One of the fun things too, though, about chapter books is that we get to meet the families of the characters from the book, and we get to meet the other people in the town. And what I'm discovering is that all the adults in the books are kind of like the kids. They're very interesting. They all have wacky things that they're interested in, and they're very cool. I'd like to live in Blue River Creek. Maybe I will.
All right, we've got a question from Avery at New Haven Elementary. And Avery is curious, why do you like to write your books in a rhyming pattern?
Wow, that's very observant. It's true that most of my picture books are in rhyme. Not all of them, but almost all of them. Why do I do that? I do that, I think, because I like music. And when I write a picture book, it's like writing a song. And it's like I hear it kind of as music. And it's almost like, do you ever get a song stuck in your head and it just, ooh, you cannot get it out? It's an earworm and it kind of gets stuck in there. When I write a rhyming book, it's like that. It's sort of like I get this melody in my head and I don't quite know what it is, but I kind of tool around with it and it becomes a poem and kind of like a song. And so it's just a thing that I like. I like music, and I think that they're about music. Good question.
I have a lot of students who are wondering really how old you were when you started to write.
Yeah.
Were you writing when you were younger, or, was it something, a passion that came about later? Or people are wondering, how old were you?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I did write things and I really loved it. And I remember writing with my sister on this typewriter back here. So that's another sound that has meaning for me, is the sound of my mom's typewriter. We would sit and we would type stories on her typewriter. But I didn't really think about being a writer for real as a career until I was about 30. But guess what? I'm 60 now. What? I know. 60 is awesome. And I'm 60. So I've been at it for 30 years, which is crazy. Whoever would have thunk it? And the great thing is, I don't think it's a thing I'll ever stop doing. I enjoy it so much. I mean, I may end up stop doing it, but I will, even if I don't publish books, I will always think I will be writing things in my head or writing things down because I enjoy it so much. And I hope that all of you find something that you enjoy doing, some way to express yourself, some art that you really like. And that could be really anything. Making anything, whatever it is helpful. And I think gets your brain going. It's very important.
All right. I have a question from Laramie, who is wondering, why is the name of the book called I Love You Like Yellow, when in the book there are other things mentioned as well?
That's true. Couple of reasons. One is I couldn't put them all in the title, because then the title would be I Love You Like Yellow, Green, Orange, Tangerine, Crispy, and it would be so long that it would take the whole shelf, which would be fine, but other people might not like that. And it would very, very, very long to type when you wanted to buy it. So the reason it became I Love You Like Yellow was because I like yellow, first of all, and it's a very bright and sunny color. And I think it's a color that can have lots of different images going with it. But also I wanted it to be 2 syllables. I wanted the word to be 2 parts. So I could have said I love you like green, but for the poem, I needed 2 syllables. So that could be orange, but nothing rhymes with orange, purple, and some other ones. And I just liked yellow the best. It's a very interesting question.
So here's another good one that I know every writer encounters. What do you do when you're stumped and maybe you run out of writing ideas?
Yeah, and that can happen. What happens is sometimes you get stumped when you're in the middle of a book and you're writing along and you like don't know where to go with it. You don't know, like let's say I'm writing a story about a person who's walking down the street and he finds a dog, and then I don't know what happens next. Sometimes I give myself a challenge and say, I take a coin and I literally will flip the coin and say, heads, the dog runs away from him and the character has to chase it. Or tails, they go home with the dog. So sometimes I just make up like decisions and take a branch depending on a flip of a coin and see where it goes. And if I don't like it, then I go and try a different one. So I can do tricks like that. But sometimes, and usually though, if I get stuck, I put it away for a while if I have the time. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you have to just keep working and it will eventually work out. Sometimes I just put it aside and I go for a walk out in nature, or I go take a dog for a walk, or go play with the dog, or I take a nap. Sometimes naps are just the thing, or a shower. I do something to sort of shake up and make myself stop thinking about it too much. Because sometimes you can get in your own way. And if you're like, oh, then you get too frustrated and then you're not open to a new idea. But if you're outside, I find that just being in nature, and I don't know if it's because you have so many things, you're hearing sounds, you're feeling the temperature of the air on your skin, or maybe it's raining, or but that kind of distracts part of your brain. Or maybe you're riding a bicycle, you have to use part of your brain to do that. When I do anything that requires part of my brain to be doing something else, it's like that frees up the other part of my brain to start thinking about it again. And I almost always then will figure out what to do. So my advice is go do something completely different. Think about something else. And if you have to, put it away for a while, even, that can be 10 minutes, an hour, we'll get a snack, or it can be longer than that. I have stories that I've started months or even years ago that I still haven't had the time to figure out or quite figured out what to do, but that's okay. They'll stay there and I can come back later. And don't be afraid. This is really important. Don't be afraid to get it wrong. That's just part of the process. A lot of times I will write something and I'll get to the end and I'll be like, no, that just doesn't work. So I recently had a book that I started 10 years ago, maybe, and I had written it and I thought it was all done. And it just kind of never did anything. And it sat there. So I went back about 2 months ago and I decided the end was wrong. And I cut the whole second half of the book off and threw it away. And I started new. And now the book is great. And I sold it and it's wonderful. And I can't tell you what it is, but it'll be out in a couple of years. And it's a secret. But I needed to be away from it for a long time, because sometimes you get really attached to the thing you've written and you can't recognize that even though you love it, maybe it's not exactly what you need to be. So distance can help.
Good advice. Kaylin from New Haven is asking, how do they make the books for everyone?
Oh, this is such a good question. This is actually probably my favorite question. All right, so I'm going to give you the very, very fast, how do you make a book story? It's like this. One day I'm walking down the street. A light bulb goes on over my head. Bing, I've got an idea. Best idea ever. I write it down. Send it to my editor. Oh, could be better. Could be better. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Wait, at last I've got it. And I write it and it's done. And then the editor takes it to an illustrator and they talk about it. And then the illustrator comes up with ideas on what they would like to make, and they make sketches, and then they make the art, and they go back and forth and back and forth, back and forth until they've got the art just right. Then they take a picture of the art, they scan it in and make a really high quality picture of it. And then they take the text, the words that I've written, and they typeset them. So they use very high quality type on a computer. Now it's on a computer, it used to be on typewriters or different things. And they put them together so that on the page, the picture will be here and the type will be just in the most readable space. So it's very easy to process. When they've got it all perfect and it's all set, then they send it to the printer, and the printer takes pictures of it. And the printer takes pictures so that they can separate out all the different colors that go into the illustration. So for instance, in this picture, it looks like yellow, and that will be cyan. And there's then green and, I forget the 4 colors, black, cyan, 2 others, magenta and blue, I think. And they will print, they will take a photograph, put these magnificently large plates on a printer, and they will roll it through ink of each of those colors, and then on enormous paper that's way bigger than like this whole, probably almost as big as the room I'm in, wide. They will print copies of each picture. They'll print it in yellow, then they'll roll over it again in magenta and cyan, and that will make the colored prints. And then they will go and print thousands and thousands and thousands of copies. They'll cut them, they'll fold them, they'll sew together the pages, and then they'll put them in the cover. And the cover of the book is cardboard. You can hear that's cardboard that's very dense with a picture glued on it, which is one of the reasons we have end papers that helps cover the seam where the cover was. And then they put them together, they glue the pages into the cover, and then they put them in boxes and they send them to a warehouse. And then from the warehouse, marvelous stores like Skylark will order books and have them in the shop. And then people can come to the shop and get the books. And then you can go home and you can sit down and you can go, oh, I'm reading a book. And that's it. And it's an amazing, interesting process. And it takes hundreds and hundreds of people to go through that. So many people touch a book before, from the time I go, ding, I have an idea, until the time you get to sit on your couch and share the book with someone you love. It's amazing. And all the people who work on it are people who love books and they love kids, and they want to have the best stories possible in the world. And it's really cool.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love hearing about that.
It's very interesting. And there's nothing like the smell. You know, I was talking about there are senses and smells. The smell of printer's ink is this amazing smell that's nothing less like it in the world. There's a smell that I love.
We have a lot of people come into Skylark and say, "Oh, the smell of the new books! It just is wonderful."
Yes, can I tell you, as a writer, very exciting thing is when I get a box of new books, and I'll be a whole box of the same book. There's two things that happen, and every writer I know does this. They'll say they don't, but they do. They take it out and go, "Oh, a new smell book." Oh, yeah, and then they do this. They go, crack, and the book makes this little popping sound because the glue and the spine is still intact, and it's just like. And also, we're book nerds, and that's what we do.
True. Lucia, in Mrs. Wright's class at Beulah Ralph, is wondering something more of a personal nature. She's wondering, who is in your family?
Wow. So my immediate family is my husband, Michael, my son, Andrew, who's almost 30, my daughter, Katie, who is 28. Yeah, she just turned 28. And our dog, Josie T. Labradoodle. The T stands for the. So Josie the Labradoodle. And that's my immediate family. But then, of course, I have, like everyone, I have more people out there in the world. And I have 5 brothers and sisters. My mom and dad are deceased, long gone, and so are my grandma. But yeah, and I have cousins and just the usual assortment of people out there. Not the usual, there's actually no usual assortment of people. It's really a cool thing that I'm very intrigued by is the variety of families. Oh, I mean, so many cool families, and they're all different. Everybody gets their own flavor of family and people who love them and people that they love. And that's exciting. That's one thing I love about this book is that we get to see different, just to get a peek into some different people's lives.
Davon Washington from Shepherd is wondering, which book of yours was the hardest to write?
I think, and they all have challenges, different challenges, but the one that was the most personal to me, and the one that was the most personal to me and therefore really required me to put a lot of heart into it, is The Secrets of Cicada Summer. And there's actually a different cover for it's been reissued with a different cover. It's in paperback as well. And this is a story that is very much taken from the place I grew up, which is Southern Illinois, which so pretty much just east of you guys across the state line and go towards Wren Lake if you know the area. But it's about a girl who was raised in this little tiny town, and I'm from a town of 300 people, so a little village, and we ran the tiny grocery store there, but on the edge of cornfields. And so I very much had an outdoor summer. Every day you'd get up and you'd go outside and you just play outside, and it was hot, but and there were cicadas when it was, hot and summery. And so the place is very much taken from my childhood, to the extent that when I went back, when this book came out and I got to go back to my school, the kids from the school read it and they were like, is this that tree over there? Is this Dungy's house? Is this? And they knew the landmarks. So that was a very personal experience because I was writing about a place that was real to me. The story and what happens in the book is not true. So I don't have a brother named Pete, and that story is not true, but the time and the place very much. And that was fun, but it also was emotionally very intense. And I found like I really loved writing it, but it made me cry, which means that I was tapping into some emotions. And sometimes when people read my books, they cry. And I cry when I write a lot of my books. And I think that's good because that means I have found something inside that has reached my heart. And worked and has found some truth in it. And that's what I really want to try to do when I write a book, is tell something true. And I sometimes succeed. Or I hope I do.
Well, thank you for all of this, Andrea. I think we'll finish up with, this has just been wonderful. We'll finish up with a question. What is your favorite part of being an author? And then any final words that you'd like to share with our students and teachers.
Sure. What's my favorite part of being an author? I have a lot of favorite parts. I don't know if I can say one specifically, but I think maybe it's being able to explore ideas and being able to learn more about the world and how I fit into the world and how about other people. And it really is the same experience that I get from reading as well, is getting to learn more about the world. So my thoughts are, and these are my final thoughts about it, is that I hope all of you spend every moment you can reading, and read everything. Read everything you can find. You're never hurt by reading good books. And sometimes read bad books and you'll go, I don't like that book, and think about why you didn't like that book. What was it didn't work for you? And you can learn from that too. But the more books you read, the better you will be at whatever you want to be in the world. It doesn't matter what you want to do. If you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a farmer, if you want to be a rancher, if you want to be an astronaut, it doesn't matter what you want to do. You have to know everything you can. And also, we have a lot of big problems in the world that need solving. Big problems like climate change. That's a real one. And you guys are going to have a lot of knowledge to be able to face the problems that, just like every generation does. The more you read, the more you know, you're going to do better at that. And also, read books about other kinds of people. Read books about people that from places you haven't been, from people you haven't met, because you will learn about them and you will learn about yourself. And the more you know, I mean, the better off you're going to be whatever you choose to do, and you'll be better people for it. And you will learn, and this is the word of the day, is empathy. And that empathy is the most important thing. You will learn to understand and to care about others. And when everybody does that, when everybody has empathy, then we can all take care of each other and solve problems and have a better world. And that's big stuff. And it starts with it starts with this. It starts with this little sound of opening a book and going, crack, and reading a book. That's all you got to do. Thank you so much for letting me come and talk to you all. Thank you, teachers, for everything. Thank you, Skylark Books. Can we give Skylark Books a big round of applause, guys? Big old round.
And I know it's so hard. You know, one of the advantages of virtual events is, yes, we can have all you students and teachers gather for this. But I know if we were in person, we would all be giving you thunderous applause. So thank you so much, Andrea Beaty, for speaking with all of us and talking about your books, talking about being a writer. Just, this was wonderful. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And maybe someday we'll be able to do this in person. I would very much love to come back to God's country out there. Beautiful, beautiful. Truly is. Truly is. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.